everyone, it's Peyton from Rackets Runners, and today we're going to take a look at the new version of the New Balance Rebel. Before we get started, please remember that you can check these out online at racketsandrunners.ca or come see us in person in store. So first, let's get into the background of what the Rebel stands for. Traditionally, it is a bit more of a daily trainer, but it's more geared towards speed rather than long distance running. So typically it was a little bit lower cushioned and uses New Balance's fuel cell foam rather than their fresh foam. And the fuel cell foam is a little bit more geared towards responsiveness rather than cushioning. So in the latest iteration, this is the version 5. The updates from version 4 is that they actually added quite a bit more cushioning in the midsole of the shoe. They actually added 5 millimeters in both the forefoot and the heel of the shoe. The drop height's still the same, it's 6 millimeters. However, the new stack height is 29 millimeters in the forefoot and 35 millimeters in the heel, rather than the previous 24 and 29. So this is a much taller shoe compared to the version 4. So that means that it is more geared for longer distance running than the previous shoe. So if you liked the version 4, but you wish it would be a little bit more comfortable and absorb more impact for your longer runs, the version 5 would be a great fit. One of the other improvements they made in the version 5 is that they added much more rubber on the bottom of the shoe to increase the durability of the shoe. So this should last you much longer than the version 4, which will be especially nice since you are going on longer runs. The shoe will last you a bit longer. This shoe is a little bit heavier than the previous version, and that's going to be due to that increased stack height and a little bit more rubber, but they did re-engineer the upper of the shoe, so it is still a very lightweight, minimal upper. If you can see here, they kind of go with what the speed chooses, and you can kind of see my hands on the inside of the shoe, so it's a very light, minimal upper. Moving on to the fit, I will say when I first slipped it onto the shoe, originally I had a 7.5. I immediately went and I got a size 8. The shoe fits a solid half size short. So if you haven't worn, and this is the same as the previous Rebel, the version 4 also fit about a half size short. So if you're usually one size, try your size, but you're probably gonna need to go that extra half size up so you can have enough room in your forefoot so your toes don't touch the front, especially since this shoe is now a little bit better for longer distance running. Your feet are going to swell quite a bit more, so you do want that extra room. And as with most New Balance shoes, it does have a pretty generous forefoot, so you shouldn't really need to go to the wider width if you usually don't need a wide width. Again, with the feel and fit of the shoe, the upper doesn't feel bulky at all, but it does feel like there is enough cushioning in the tongue of the shoe that you're not getting any lace bite. Compared to the version 4, they also re-engineered the heel cup in the version 5. Again, I found that it just really hugged the back of my foot quite nicely, and I didn't notice any issues of it pressing too hard into my Achilles, and it just seemed like a nice hug around the back of the foot while I was running, and I didn't really deal with any heel slippage even if I didn't really crank up the laces in the front. Okay, so how did the shoe feel when I was running or walking around in it? So this type of shoe, the category that it's in is typically more of like a speed runner, and I personally find that more of the faster, more minimal shoes, think your Brooks Launch or your Hoka Mach. For me personally, they're not enough cushioning and they actually aggravate my shin splints. So I find that I can't really wear that type of shoe, and the Rebel is technically in that category. However, with this new update of the Rebel, the fact that they added more cushioning actually helped me quite a bit, and I could actually use this for my faster runs without it aggravating any of my lower leg issues. In addition to that, I could use it for my long runs as well, which was really nice. So if it was like a faster long run, like if I was scheduled to run like a tempo 8K or something like that, I found that these were the perfect shoe for that. The cushioning of the shoe, again, it uses New Balance's fuel cell cushioning rather than their fresh foam cushioning. And so that means that although it is a soft cushioning, it's much more responsive than their fresh foam cushioning. So I really felt a nice return from each of my steps when I took off. While it is definitely more cushioned than a lot of the other more tempo run shoes, it is not as cushioned as like one of the more maximalist shoes or more like premiumly cushioned shoes that are like truly designed for those longer distance runs, like the New Balance 1080 that uses the fresh foam cushioning, or like the Hoka Clifton, Hoka Bondi, the Asics Nimbus. But this is a fantastic daily trainer if you want something to kind of do it all. You could definitely run, like you can definitely run longer distances than these, like, a half or a full marathon. They're just going to be a little bit more fast and responsive rather than cushioned and protective. So with these new changes, who does this shoe really fit? It's a great hybrid shoe. I think it fits into kind of almost the same category as the Asics Nova Blast, if you know your running shoes. So good for people who want a shoe that kind of does it all, that they can take on longer runs, but also they can use it to pick up speed in those runs or their shorter runs. If you're doing structured training where you're doing long distance speed work and recovery runs, and you only want one shoe, this would be a good fit for that. Again, it is in kind of that same category as the Asics Nova Blast. I would say it's not quite as cushioned and responsive, but it is a really good step into that area of the shoe market, and it has a nice wide toe box, and it is super light, and it's not quite as bulky as the Nova Blast. If you're going to get a little bit more specific and have multiple shoes for different types of workouts, this would be more of your speed run shoe or a faster paced long run shoe. Now with this added stack height, again, it has kind of pushed it into more of a do it all category than a speed work category. If you want a truly fast shoe, again, you're gonna think a bit more about like your plated shoes. Those ones are made to be super fast and for long distances as well. So if you're looking for a racing shoe and you're truly super competitive, or you want to beat your PRs, the plated shoes might be a better fit for you. Again, with the added stack height, you do lose a bit of responsiveness. So if you want a truly responsive shoe, or you're someone who likes more ground feel in your speed shoes, you might want to shift a little bit more towards something that has less stack height, like the Brooks Launch or the Hoka Mach. Those ones are going to be a faster, more traditional speed work shoe without the carbon plate. But again, if you're like me and you just need a little bit more cushioning to keep you running, this shoe is fantastic, and it's definitely a lot snappier and more responsive than a lot of my other shoes that are more geared for those long distance or recovery runs. So if you're taking a look at New Balance's lineup and you're trying to figure out what shoe's the best for you and you want to know where this fits, there's different levels of shoes. A good starting point would be the New Balance 880. It uses their fresh foam technology, so it's a little bit more plush, but again, it is a shoe that can take you even if you're from running 5Ks to all the way to marathon running. While the 880 uses their fresh foam technology, I would say that the Rebel is right next to it because it's the same price point, and it uses their fuel cell technology. So the New Balance 880 is more of a traditional runner. It actually competes from year to year for being the first or second most selling running shoe in North America, whereas the Rebel is a little bit more speed focused. The level above the more cushioned 880 and the faster Rebel is going to be your New Balance 1080. That's going to be a softer, more plush shoe that if you're doing a lot of long distance running or looking for a long distance or recovery shoe, that one is going to be more cushioned. The next level above that, you have some of their more super shoes, I would call them. They're carbon plated. You have the Super Comp Trainer, which is a carbon plated shoe. I would say it's going to be a little bit more like the next level above the Rebel. So it is highly cushioned. It is designed for long distance, half marathon, full marathon training, but it also has that carbon plate to give you a little bit extra speed and more snap, which is a big difference than the Rebel. So they both use the same cushioning technology, they both use fuel cell, but the Super Comp Trainer, it's more expensive and it has a carbon plate. So again, like if you're just getting into training or looking for a do-it-all shoe, the Rebel is a fantastic fit and complement to pretty much any shoe that you have in your repertoire, just because it is a little bit snappier but can take you on longer distances as well. That's going to be it for this review. Thanks for tuning in about the new Rebel version 5. If you want to check us out, take a look at us online at racketsrunners.ca or come visit us in store.